Hello, my name is Andres Bowers, and this is my Support Your Organization speech. I'll be presenting about St. Jude's Hospital. Here we go. Close your eyes for a second and imagine a typical hospital hallway. You probably hear the beeping of monitors or the smell of a sharp clinical hospital scent. Now imagine instead of seeing adults in those hospital beds, you see a 5-year-old. Instead of a briefcase by the chair, there's a teddy bear. And that is the reality for thousands of families across the country, tens of thousands. We like to think of childhood as a time of being carefree with no worries, but as the statistics really disprove this. According to the American Cancer Society, cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in children. Every year, over 15,000 children in the US are diagnosed. That's not just a number. That's 15,000 families that lives are turned upside down in one diagnosis. This hits home for me personally as my family's been hit multiple times by cancer, and I've seen it firsthand how it can tear through someone's life. Seeing an adult struggle is hard enough, but seeing a child's innocence meet the cruelty of a disease such as cancer is really why I'm so passionate about speaking about this organization. Today, I want to talk to you about the physical and financial toll of childhood cancer. We'll look at pediatric research, why pediatric research is so drastically underfunded, and finally, how St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives by making sure that a family's bank account never determines whether a kid lives or dies. To understand the solution, we must look at the sheer gravity of the problem. Cancer is an aggressive thief. For child, the symptoms aren't just physical pain, they include the mental exhaustion of long-term isolation as well as treatments that are often designed for adult bodies. According to the American Cancer Society, these kids face chemotherapy and radiation that can impact the development for the rest of their lives. But while the child is fighting the disease, the parents are fighting the system. And a typical hospital cost is insane, to say the least. And according to the National Children's Cancer Society, the economic impact goes far beyond the hospital bill. It's the cost of travel, food, lost wages for missed work, and specialized care that can cost easily up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. Many families find themselves in a predicament where they literally cannot afford the cost to help their kids survive. So why is this such a massive hurdle or problem? Why is this support so hard to find? One of the biggest roots of this problem is where our money actually goes. According to the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation, about only 4% of federal funding for cancer research is actually directed toward pediatric cases. Most of the funding is actually funneled into adult cancers and leaves basically the children and the innocent and small to rely on leftovers. Secondly, specialized pediatric care is expensive. Treating a child uses different equipment, different dosages, and a higher ratio of staff to patients. As noted in the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, the specialized nature of this care means that at hospitals, the costs are passed directly to families, often putting them at risk of poverty trying to keep their child alive. This brings us to a question of how can we bridge this gap between the cost of care and the need for a cure? This is where St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital steps in. They operate on a simple philosophy about where they say no child should die in the dawn of life. Because of public support, families never receive a bill about housing, travel, food, or even treatment. St. Jude essentially removes the financial cause of stress so they can fully focus on their child, but they don't stop at their own front, like their own like research. Unlike most hospitals, St. Jude freely shares its research. They believe that a breakthrough in their lab belongs to the entire world. When they find a way to increase survival rates for children, they publish it to doctors everywhere to use. Since St. Jude opened in 1962, they helped push overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20%, I think over 80%, I believe over 80%. They aren't just treating children, they are changing the world the way the world fights the disease. When you look at these numbers, it's clear that we have the power to change the ending of a lot of these kids' stories. And we talked about the physical and financial heartbreak that cancer brings. We looked at the gap funding and what makes this battle so hard to win. But most importantly, we've seen how St. Jude provides the aid and the research to bridge that gap. By focusing on the cause and effect relationship between research and survival, and by removing the barrier of cost, St. Jude is building a future where cancer is no longer a death sentence for a child. I encourage you to support this mission. That's my overall goal of this speech. You don't need to be a doctor saving life. Donating, participating in fundraisers, or just sharing the story of St. Jude, you're helping grow the network of support that spans across the entire country and helps St. Jude. At the beginning of the speech, I asked you to imagine a child in a hospital bed, and now you can imagine that child playing on a playground, enjoying its life as a kid should. And I think that's the reality that St. Jude is really aspiring to achieve. And I think that this organization deserves our full full support, and I couldn't think of a better organization to support, in my opinion. I hope you guys think the same after this speech, and I appreciate everybody for listening. My name's Andres Bowers, and this is my final speech. Thank you so much.